Hello and welcome to the Practical Pisces podcast. I'm Chelsea Harder, your favorite psychic medium, your host and your guide through the world of spirituality and all things woo. Here I'm going to share my stories, what I've learned along my path and my experiences, as well as all the different things that come up when you're connecting with spirit. So I'm inviting you to bring your soul to the table and join me with spirit. Let's channel. Hello! I actually got to my phone today and had multiple messages about people saying, where's episode 2? And so I took that initiation to sit down and see what showed up today. And I think the biggest thing I really want to talk about is connecting to your own guides. As I talked about in my first episode about when spirit came through for me, what that looked like, and how that opened my spiritual awakening, I would say following that was discovering all of my other team in spirit. And over the years, it would slowly introduce one more and another and another. And typically, we see that at one time, we may work with 3 guides. Like those are our 3 focus. They can change over time. And we may feel like, I haven't felt grandma lately. Where's she been? And it actually could be that someone else is stepping in for you. So looking at that, I want to kind of follow up from where we left off with my friend Carly and shift into the next spirit that came through, which was the next loss that I had. And this was my path of discovery. Doesn't mean that it will be your same path, but circling back, my grandmother, who I called Gigi Ma, when she passed, my mother had called me and let me know that morning that she had gone. And I went about the rest of my day. I went to work that day and just went about things as normal and had some passing thoughts here and there. And I was driving home really late at night. It had to be like 9 or 10 p.m. after a waitressing shift. And I was driving on the 101, my windows down, and just kind of letting the emotion come, and I really started to cry. And all of a sudden, I had my hands on the steering wheel, and I felt this warm breeze over my left hand, and then I smelled her perfume, White Shoulders, it was her iconic scent, brush over my nose and go out the other window, and this song came on. It wasn't necessarily a song her and I had listened to, but it was just in that moment, it was perfect, and the song just was too much, and it just kept repeating, this is all too much. And at the time, I'd just been dealing with a lot, had a lot going on, and having that moment of feeling her touch and smelling her again, and just the acknowledgement of how much I was going through, like I felt so connected to her in that moment. And I just knew that she was with me. I think we expect spirit to be so in your face, like an apparition that talks directly to you, but spirit speaks in such a subtle way that it can be really hard to even realize that it's happening. And so what makes a good medium is someone who can pick up on the subtleties of spirit. Now, we all can connect to spirit. Anyone can be a medium. However, I think there are some people who are more inclined to see those subtleties and understand it. And there are some people who are going to struggle with moving their ego out of the way. And again, I'm going to say this same message of mediumship is like playing guitar. You can be taught it, you can learn it on your own, and you don't necessarily have to be Led Zeppelin. You can just enjoy it for yourself. And I know it's a fun and silly analogy, but I think it really explains the point that it's accessible to you and it's meant to be. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about, okay, how do you discover your own? You know, one, you can go see a medium and try to connect and see who's been showing up for you. It's a great way to access that. But if you're wanting to do it for yourself, the best piece of advice I could give is sit with spirit in meditation. Many of us struggle with meditation. Hey, it only takes a few minutes to really just be in silence. If you've ever been driving with no music and never had a thought cross your mind and you're like, how did I get to work? That right there is meditation, period, end. It's so much more simple than we give it credit. But back to the spirit guide meditation. When I connect with mine, I sit in silence and I imagine an office waiting room. Nothing too glamorous, just a simple waiting room. And I imagine that I'm opening the door, and I do always encourage you to say a prayer of your choice for your highest and best good, and open that door and imagine you've got 3 fold-up seats, and your loved ones are sitting there. At first, I remember trying to tap into it, but it was so much easier for me to connect with someone else's guides and see them so clearly. It took me really pausing and going back to the fundamentals of seeing my own guide. And once I really did that, it was hysterical how accurate the imagery was of things I didn't even remember about my grandmother. But in this vision, in this meditation, it was like a spotlight was on her in this office waiting room. And I saw her bend over while in her seat, reach down and grab her purse, pull her purse up to her chest, and then slowly stand up with legs tightly together, and then gently, with her elbows bent, tucked her purse under her arm. I know it's a long explanation, but that's exactly how she used to pick up her purse, and I hadn't even thought about her mannerisms and how she might come across. And at the end of this podcast, I am going to do my version of a guided meditation to connecting with your spirit guides, but I really wanted to explain that process and how she came through and how it made it so clear for me that it was connection to spirit and not me, just remembering her or having a specific memory coming up, and that's why it made sense. Like in that moment, it was a very specific visualization where I got a piece of information about a loved one that wasn't part of my memory. Now, with that being said, I do want to talk about, okay, well, what happens after you identify your spirit guides? Like, then how do you work with them? How can I connect with my loved ones in spirit on a daily basis and continue a conversation? There's so many different ways that spirit shows up for us. And a lot of it is so unseen that we highlight and can also ask for it. So what does that look like? In the day-to-day, I might be driving in my car, and a lot of my work with spirit turns out to be in the car or at my office, but I've set it up that way. I digress. I might be driving and say, oh, Grandma, thinking about you. If you've got time and you're listening, I want an answer to this, or can I have a sign for this? And to give a funny and specific example, there was a home giveaway in my area probably several months ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm a spiritual person. I can manifest shit. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to enter and I'm going to ask spirit to help me manifest this, right? And was being kind of smart alecky about it, if I'm being honest. But I sit in my car and I'm like, you know what? I want a sign. I'm going to ask spirit for a sign. And I said, hey, Grandma, I need you by the end of this drive to give me a sign that this house is for me. And, I had a 30-minute drive. Right at the end of my drive, as I'm getting off on the exit to my house, this U-Haul swerves in front of me. And on the back it said, do it yourself and save. And I was like, one, that's exactly what my grandmother would have said and sent as a sign to make me laugh. And two, it was sassy. It was her personality. It totally made sense in a way that she would have shown it to me and how clearly she comes through. Now, not every spirit is going to communicate so clearly. And I think part of that does have to do with that person's personality. Think about how they would want to show up for you, because that's usually how they come through in signs. Now, there's little things that I've seen along the way is common signs that spirit sends. Usually birds, like birds are a favorite. Why? Because there's a ton of them. They come in different colors and they can have different meaning for each person and be different for every state, right? Now, another one would be even like feathers, like white feathers or a bluebird feather or those little things. And why I bring in that energy of, okay, light, common, right? Things that spirit could move, which I know that gets in its own world of woo, right? But if the universe is infinite, why wouldn't spirit have infinite possibility? Anywho, I go off on a lot of side tangents, so that's just going to be part of this. My brain is constantly moving in 10 directions. But thinking about other signs, birds, feathers, another one is dimes, coins, buttons. That comes up a lot for people. And I had someone whose grandfather was a tailor, and she kept finding buttons, and she kept storing them in a jar. But it had come up for her. I was like, he keeps giving you buttons, and she burst into tears. She's like, oh my God, I have a whole jar of buttons. And for some people, it could literally be like, gosh, I have this button that keeps popping off, or I keep finding buttons in the drawer. Like, it's like little things like that. Or even, I had one person whose mom was a seamstress, and she would find threads on her clothes. She's like, I have a red thread, and be like, where? I don't even own a red sweater. Where's this red thread coming from? And then others, even in my own personal experience, it's seeing repeated numbers like over and over and over again. Like 555 has always been one. I have several fives in my phone number. So for me, it was very like, oh, I see this a lot. Like this comes up a lot, and it's my confirmation from spirit. And it can actually just be a universal, like my whole team sends me that. It doesn't always necessarily mean it's like specific one person. Which in other ways, like license plates, I get messages on license plates all the time, especially if I let and allow myself to look for it. One of the big message givers I get through signs or messages from spirit through my own experience versus in session, I often will get messages through TV. So I'll be sitting and I'm trying to decide on a show, and then I'll just really feel randomly called to this movie. I'll be like, for whatever reason, I want to watch this movie. And you know, at that time, I might be really going through something or processing something, and I'm really needing a confirmation or clarity. And I'll be watching this movie, and then all of a sudden, it feels like the whole room's gone quiet, and the volume on the TV's gone up, and I'm watching and getting either the exact scenario that I'm dealing with happening on the TV, or a character with the same name of this person I might be struggling with giving or saying some sentence of exactly what I needed to hear. But I've had that happen almost daily in my life at this point. And I'll speak to one part of that and also share a little bit about my own story. I was really struggling with a relationship with a parent, and knowing what to do or what to say. And I'm watching this random Julia Child show. In this piece, she had lost a parent, and she said, I live my life because of you and in spite of you, and I am who I am because of you and in spite of you. And it was this perfect notion of I'm grateful and I'm complete. And it's exactly how I felt in that moment, but I didn't know how to fully express it. And when I'd seen it on this movie that I randomly chose to watch on a random Sunday afternoon and got that message, I like held my chest and was like, okay, thank you, Spirit. It really just felt like the confirmation I needed to have the conversations I needed to have. And also music, just as well as TV, but music can be hearing that song that completely reminds you of that person, or while you're listening to it, a memory flashes of that person. I also think we take our moments of memory recollection for granted because they are such signs from Spirit. Spirit usually communicates, and I say usually because I see it a lot in mediumship circles and working with and knowing other mediums, how much they will just show you a memory out of the blue of something that may hurt your heart or bring you joy or be of them. All of a sudden you're processing this memory that just flashed into your mind that day. but it's to let you know they're with you, and also there's still some healing to be done. You might be like, man, I've been thinking about so-and-so all day today. I wonder if they're with me. They absolutely are, especially even another way, coming to you in your dreams. I know we process so much in our dreams, and I think to decipher between, okay, what's spirit giving me a vision and what's just me random dreaming, okay? To me, I find that those random dreams, it's always there's like 110 things going on and none of it makes sense. That to me feels like normal processing dreams. But when we have a dream where we're talking to a loved one in spirit, or that they visited us, or they're replaying an old memory, it is absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, them connecting with you for a reason and trying to give you a message, to which I invite you to write that shit down. Or I also love on my phone going on voice memos or a voice recording device and just putting the thoughts out there of what happened and labeling it. Huge emphasis on labeling it, because if you're just like, dream that one day, I would even emphasize, dream about my friend that passed. Really clarify the message so that when you go back later, that you know where it is and what it is. Another way that spirit can give you guidance on what you're needing to accomplish or do, and it can be really small tasks, right? And I'll giggle and even say, recording this episode, I had 2 to 3 people reach out to me all on the same day, all asking me for the same thing. It just speaks to my belief in there aren't necessarily coincidences, but I think there are synchronicities speaking to you. It's the same as when you have the thought of, oh man, I just have this feeling that there's something up with my car. I cannot stop thinking about my car. I'm worried that there might be something that's up. Just that feeling out of nowhere, that is intuition speaking as well. And yes, there are those of us that have anxiety, and I actually think we could give ourselves a little bit more of a break about anxiety, because some things are coming up with a sense of urgency for a reason, right? Especially if it's about the same stuff. Let's get to the root of that. Is it anxiety, or can we look at the root problem at the bottom of the anxiety to be a message of something that needs to be healed? That is a soapbox for another day, but I would love to go there with you all. I feel that intuition and gut feelings are also messages from spirit. Now, with all of that being said, showing all the different ways that spirit has come through to give me signs of communication, and how that directly correlates with my guide team and with my loved ones in spirit, as well as my higher self, I look and say all of that to show you how much you could be having signs around you without even realizing it, and how to give you another set of eyes to start looking for those things, to also give you the evidence that you need to understand that spirit is very poignant and real. So now I would like to guide you into a meditation. If you can take a moment of pause, this will be an opportunity to breathe, relax, and connect with your guide team. You don't have to be perfect at meditation. You just have to be present. So take a moment to grab a seat, to lay back if you need to, and find a quiet space in your seat or laying position. All I want you to do is start to just roll your shoulders back, relax your forehead, take a big deep breath in, big deep breath out. Let your eyelids get heavy, let your shoulders get heavy. Let your feet feel planted and grounded. Imagining you have roots growing from the bottom of your feet, connecting you to the earth. I just want you to start to imagine that you are approaching a gentle river. To get to the river, you're just walking through a warm forest with dirt ground beneath you. You can see moss on the trees and pebbles along the way. And as you continue to walk through the forest, the sound of the river in the distance gets louder and louder. You begin to walk down through the ravine, opening way to the river that you can see in the distance. Every step you take brings you deeper into your restful state, allowing you to feel lighter, allowing you to feel more restful. And as you approach the river, you'll see a duck boat in the distance, old and wooden, with high arches on each side. And you can see some familiar figures in the distance on the boat. As it comes to a stop in front of you, you're invited to get on. As you begin to look around you, you may see between 1 to 3 people. First, just start to take notice of who's to your left. Are you seeing someone familiar? Are there pieces that you can identify? Whether it's just the sensation of a name. And I just want you to look to see who's sitting next to them. And scanning and looking around, seeing if anyone else is with you. The boat continues along the river and allows you to have conversation. Say anything you'd like to say and hear anything that they may give you. Taking a moment for each person that's there, any emotions that may come with it. Taking a moment to thank whomever showed up for you today. Saying any final thoughts that you have for them. And noticing the boat begins to slow and coast onto the sand. As you gently start to take your first steps off the boat, feeling the sand beneath your toes, walking up through the ravine, and looking back and seeing that the boat has continued on the river, begin to take more steps up, with each step allowing your body to move your fingers and toes, to take any stretch that's needed. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Gently opening your eyes. Taking any notes or writing anything down that to surround us in this moment with the healing energy of Spirit's guidance, to allow us to shift the ego, the negativity, and the judgment out of the way, to allow Spirit to continue to connect with us more and more every day, with gratitude for the grace and ease. Amen, and so it is. And with that, I hope you got some piece of support, guidance, love, and connection with Spirit today. And I look forward to connecting again soon.
Are you ready to dig deeper and connect even more to Spirit? Then book a session with Chelsea at thepracticalpisces.com.